What's up, all you fishing fools? Jim Walsh coming to you live from Walsh Hog Custom Bait Studios. I've had a few people ask me about painting lures, about different steps. I think one of the most important parts when you're going to paint your lures is lure prep. So I was just going to tell you a little bit about how I do my lure prep. That's kind of the building block of everything. If you don't have a good lure prep, nothing else is going to come out right. So I'll just talk to you. People do it different ways, but I'll tell you how I do it. So you're going to get your blank, and just remember, when you get these blanks, man, these manufacturers that put these things out, I mean, they're just popping them through a machine. They're stamping them out, coming through there. So a lot of times you'll find little defects and all that when you get them, little bumps, little marks from the machine press or whatever. So the first thing that I like to do is just kind of go through them and see if they have any of these little bumps or whatever, and you can use a fine grade sandpaper to kind of smooth them down, especially on these seams if they feel rough or whatever. You want to get it smooth as you can. Now, of course, you know, if you have any detail, like on these have some skeleton detail, you know, that's normal. You don't want to sand any of that off because you don't want to take any of that detail out. I'm just talking about like defects and stuff. And you can use a fine grade sandpaper. If it's something small enough, I actually use different grades of Scotch-Brite pads. So once you get that off, or even if they don't have any defects, I like to sand my baits anyway. This one's kind of dull, but some of them you'll get are really shiny. I mean, you just want to lightly scuff them. You don't want to leave any deep gouges or scratches on them, but I tell people that you want to scuff them just enough to take the shine off of them, because think about it. If you are familiar with painting, like glass, when you paint on glass, paint typically doesn't stick to glass well because it's so smooth, there's nothing to really adhere to. So if you hit it with these pads a little bit, and like I said, I basically just say take the shine off of it. This one's not really shiny, but I'll just scuff it up. There's really no marks on this bait. I try to stick with manufacturers that send me pretty clean blanks. And I've went through several of them, and I'm just lightly scuffing this up, and I'm basically just enough to take the shine off. But what that does, when you take that shine off, and again, you don't want to put any big deep scratches or gouges, but what that does is it makes these little microscopic scratches in there that you can't hardly see, other than it kind of dulling the shine off there, and that really gives your paint something to adhere to. Now, I like to wear gloves. The issue with that is, of course, with all this COVID stuff going on, it's hard to get, you know, latex gloves or what have you. I saw it coming, so I went ahead and ordered just a few that I have because they're essential to me to do what I do. But you don't have to have gloves. The main reason that I wear gloves is because any oils off your hand or anything that gets on these baits, your paint's not going to stick to your bait. So I like to wear gloves. With that being said, gloves are not a cure-all, because you have these gloves on, you're doing this, and you know, you rubbing your beard or you scratch your face or something, you still get the oils off your hands. So I tell people to try not to touch these baits, you know, no more than you have to. Right now I'm just doing the sanding process, and I'm going to tell you how you can get around not wearing gloves. At this point, I got gloves on, but it really doesn't matter because you're just kind of sanding it, scuffing it up. So then after I get it scuffed up, what I like to do, and you know, some people will wash their baits in Dawn dishwashing liquid and all that. Now these baits are already tested. As soon as I get my baits in, I put them in a big thing of water, and I let them sit for a while. And basically what I'm doing when I do that is to see if any of them leak. You know, and if they leak, I'll try to sell them. If it's not bad, if it's bad, I just chunk them and do away with them. So with that being said, when you're doing that, you can mix a little Dawn dishwashing liquid into that water, and it'll help get any oils off. But you know, I'm always doing everything a step further. And this is strictly the prep that I'm talking about. So that's already been done. I do that right when I get my hard plastics in to see if they have holes or anything. But so I'll lightly sand it and scuff it, and then after I do that, I take alcohol. I use a 70% mix, and I just take a little paper towel, wet it down with alcohol, and then I start wiping it down. And what this is going to do is that's going to take off any oils from your hands, any oils from the machinery or whatever that'll cause your paint and clear coat not to stick, or what they call fisheye, and really mess it up. So at this point, if I didn't have gloves on, I would put gloves on. But you don't have to have gloves on, and I'll show you why. It's easier for me to do with the gloves and not worrying about it. So once I get this wiped down, now if you're doing a bunch of baits, it really doesn't matter because this alcohol is going to evaporate. So you can just do a few of them and you can let them dry. But if you're doing one and you're in a hurry, after you wipe it down with the alcohol, you can just take your hair dryer and evaporate it. Because I can promise you, if you have wet alcohol in there, your paint's not going to do good. And with the bill, I take the bills. I think it looks better, cleaner without paint on the bill. And if you have any wet alcohol in there, that's not going to stick either. Now, some people say they don't like to use alcohol. They claim it leaves some kind of residue on there as it evaporates. I've never had an issue with that. I've always used alcohol from the beginning. I've never had a problem. So at this point, it's been sanded, it's been wiped down with alcohol, so it should be clean. Like I said, I have gloves on. If you don't have gloves on at this point, that's okay. You're gonna have to touch the bait, but like I said, I'm gonna tell you how to get around that. So at this point, I'll take my bill, and unfortunately, this tape's a little bit wider than what I usually use, but I'm out of my thin stuff, but it really doesn't matter. So I like to use a painter's tape. You can use like cheap painter's tape, but I find that the 3M works for me. I think it sticks the best, at least for me. And you just want to tear you off a little piece, and you'll see how this bill runs. I like to take this piece and just kind of put it in an angle at the corner of that bill next to the bait, and kind of line it up with that eye there. You can see how I've got that. It's just kind of going at an angle, and then I'm just going to fold this piece over. And so there you see half of the bill's covered. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side with another piece of tape. And this is not rocket science. I mean, you just do the best you can lining it up. And then I'll take this piece, lay it on there, and then I'll fold it over. So I find it better to have a little bit of space in between your tape and the actual bait on the bill, because if you get a little bit of paint on this bill, it's okay, because you can take a X-Acto knife and scrape it off really clean. Versus if you have the tape and it's actually going up onto the bait and leaves that void. Because if you have a void on your actual bait, you've already put a base coat, and then you put your paint on top of that, and then you put a clear coat on top of it. It's kind of hard to go back and fix that. Now you'll notice with the tape on each side, it's going to create a little empty triangle here and a little bit of space on the bottom. You really don't have to do anything about that. Like I said, you can come back and you can scrape that paint off if you wanted to, but I'll just take a piece and line the straight edge up with the bait right there on the bill, and I'll cover that up. Some people like to leave this little void here by the line tie eye. Some people just leave it. Some people scrape it off. I think to make it look clean, I like to cover it. So what I do to do that, A lot of people try to complicate it. I don't. I just take a regular piece of tape and I just make a slight tear in it. And then all I do is where that tear is, I place that tear over that eye, and then I come back with my X-Acto knife and I just press it down. Like right up against the bait, but I want to make sure that it's not actually in contact with the bait. I'll push that down and then I'll fold the sides over. And then you can see that void is completely covered. And then the next thing I do is I just come back with some scissors and I just trim that. And there you go. This bait is ready for a base coat. When I do a base coat, I usually do a white base coat. But you know, depending on what I'm doing, sometimes like if I'm gonna do a silver scaling of it, I'll even do a black base coat. Sometimes if I want a translucent looking bait, I won't even do a base coat. I'll just lightly spray over and keep it. So, I mean, that's kind of up to you. Now, as I was telling you, at this point, if I did not have gloves on, after I put this tape on and I've handled this bait and all that, I would go back and I would wipe it down with alcohol again. And then at that point, I would only touch this covered bill. And you know, that way any oils that came off your hands, whatever, it's pretty clean. And you can do it like that. After you get it painted, clear coated, well, if you're gonna clear coat the bill, you would take this tape off before you clear coat it. With that being said, your bait would already be painted. And when you go to pull this off, if you have a little bit of sticky residue or whatever left on that bill, you can always take a little bit of alcohol and wipe it off before you clear coat. But you have to be careful. And the reason why I'm telling you that is because you know, most of these airbrush paints are water-based, and if alcohol comes in contact with that paint, it's gonna ruin it. So a lot of times what I'll do is if I go to take this tape off and there's a little bit of sticky residue, I'll just take my X-Acto knife and wipe it off. So other than that, you know, it's a big thing to keep your baits clean, I guess, is the most important take on it, with oils in your hands, because the paint just won't stick and the clear coat won't stick. You know, and the other thing is making sure you don't have any rough spots. But you know, that's pretty much it. At this point, man, it's ready to paint. So I hope that helps somebody out. There's really not a lot to it. Just take your time. You know, if you're gonna take the time to put tape on it so your bait looks nice, you know, take your time, do it right. It'll make your baits look really nice, look really professional. Walsh Hog Custom Baits, baby, get you some.